Well, my name is Rolly Perreaux. What can I tell you? I've been working in an IT business now for about 25 years. The last 10 of those have been specifically in project management. I'm a PMP, I'm an MVP on project server. I blog, I travel the world, meet new and interesting people, and mostly I speak on project and project server. So let us get to it, shall we? This is demo, everything you want. Now, if you were lucky enough to come to a session yesterday, we went through a number of different new features, new bells and whistles on project server, and project online, the newest and latest way Microsoft can take your money. Oh, well, never mind. See, I don't work for them, I can say that. Hopefully they won't get this video. Anyways, what our focus is going to be for this session specifically is now we have the tool, how can I get you up to speed really quickly using the new tools. So what I want to do is do a series of nothing but demos. Questions along the way, please just shout them out. Okay, don't be shy. We're all friends here, and basically go through a whole process of getting your projects. You may have projects that you are working on already, perhaps maybe in standalone or in little silos amongst project managers. We want to bring those into the project server, centralized admin, and as well as centralized resource sharing is critical. As well as our projects, our resources. How about creating custom calendar? Because that's something that usually a lot of people forget to do. Not everybody works from, what is it, I think 8 to 5 with an hour for lunch, I think is how Microsoft views the world. No, so we're going to change and actually show you how you can create your own and making sure that they're made available. The biggest thing to note, I would say, is when people say, well, if I'm doing this on project, what's the difference between doing that on project server? The biggest thing is that you're doing this in a centralized and shared environment, meaning that you're creating a standard for the entire organization. We are going to manage our projects by a standard of a calendar that has X number of vacation time. Maybe you're down for a month for retooling a plant, maybe. How about bankers' holidays? We incorporate that so we don't assign resources to days that you're off, because that'll throw a lot of chaos into your projects. So, but the biggest thing is standardization. Everybody is on the same platform. We're going to manage and track all of our projects the same way. So there's no more little silos of information. It's all available for anybody to see. So, without further ado, let me minimize this. And one of the first things that we're going to need to do is import some resources. Now, let me see what I got here. Right now, I'm logged in online to Project Online, and I basically got a listing here of resources. They're all generic resources. And let's see if I can get this here. Where are you? I'm just zooming in just a little bit, just so that you can see that it has a little ghosted image of two people. That's a visual indicator that you're dealing with a generic resource. And a generic resource is important when you're planning your projects right at the get-go, because I don't know who I'm going to specifically assign to a task, but I know I'm going to need somebody. So I need to be able to factor that in and put it as part of my plan, okay? So I want to be able to have as much flexibility, and then later on, I'll substitute for the person that I know, or maybe a contractor that I know that's going to be doing the work. But for right now, I want to put somebody in there, just so that I know that later on down the road, I'm going to switch it out later. So let me get out of here. Now, one of the things with the resources is under the add resource piece, there is a tool at the bottom here called import resources to enterprise. So what it is that it'll open your MPP file, and whatever resources that are listed in there, I'm going to bring them in wholesale, bulk, into the enterprise environment. And all it is just a step-by-step wizard. Nothing too fancy. And one of the first things here, it just tells you, we're going to resource field mapper. If there were any custom resource fields in this file, it will give me an opportunity to map them to enterprise resource fields that may already be there, or I can actually get them created in the enterprise. So either they're going to map one-to-one, or I'm going to actually create them over if they have the same structure. Now I know, just by showing this, it would show here's the local, and this is the enterprise. Now there isn't anything in here, but if there was, it would give you the opportunity to say, hey, listen, I've got this in the file. Is there something that I want to map on this side, on the enterprise? So I'm going to move to step 2. And in step 2, it tells me here that I have a number of local resources is 24, and the number of errors are 0. Now, let me see if I can slide this over a little bit so everybody can see. Now, it gives me a listing here of importing, and it's all listed as no. Now, this is the only thing that really sucks, especially if you have a lot of users and resources. You have to change them into yeses. But what you can do is you click in it once, and if you put a Y in it and then go down one, it will change them all very, very, and you just do this and you look at each other. And so now I'm going to import all these files over. If there is one in here that may have been already, it would say, oh, we already have this. So do you want me to map it to what's in the enterprise? So let me save this. Can I what? Wouldn't that be cool if you could? And just say everything is going to be? No, it doesn't work that way. It actually is a toggle. So this is our guy here. So let me just minimize him. And I'm in my PMO SharePoint site. And if I go to my resources, and there, looks like I've done this already once. So what would you do if you had all this? It looks like I've got duplicates. You're an administrator. You go, oops. What would you do? How could you get rid of this? Anybody? Sorry? That's definitely, we have to be the administrator to do this. And just as a little sidetrack here, I'm going to go into PWA Settings, because this inevitably will happen somewhere down the road. Okay? And what you're going to look at is, where are we at here? Pull this down. Where's my data? No, no. What's that? Sorry. Oh, there it is. It's delete enterprise objects. As soon as it wakes up. Now, this is where all your objects are. Now, just be very, very careful with this. Under your resources and users, you can go through and do essentially what I'm doing here, deleting any duplicates. Now, if you have already assigned, resources into your projects, it's very critical to figure out which one's which. Each one of these has a unique ID associated to them, and you will have to go through the painstakingly hard and difficult of finding out which one's which and possibly renaming them. Yeah, it's not a fun exercise at all. So let me just do these very quickly, and it looks like we've got them all here. And we just go ahead and delete and say, are you sure? And what this does is it kicks off a job to be done through into the queue. So we should be good there. Bless you. And just to show, so it looked like it did do what we had to do. Okay, so that, yes?
Some of those job titles got the underscore, but those at the bottom of that list didn't have an underscore.
No, it's just my way. I want to keep all my generic pieces at the top, so I'll always start an underscore. It's just my way of doing it. I know like Microsoft, they will do something called V-dashes. So the V-dash and your name. Know that you're a vendor, or a C- if you're a contractor, A- if you're an agent, and if you're just the name, then you're a blue badge, you're an employee. It's just their way, just one way of how can I find this information really quickly? Because the last thing I want to do is start reading them. What would be really nice is if they were able to do subcategories. Wouldn't that be great? Anyways, let me flip over. I'm going to do something here. I'm going to flip over to the project server side. And the reason for that, let me just max this out. Reason for my switching around is because I don't have Active Directory in the project online. What I want to do is actually import and create the accounts because I've already got them labeled. So here's my project server, and let me flip. I'm going to close this guy. And here is my Active Directory. So I have a domain controller, and I've also got project server, two separate pieces. I've got a whole mess of people in here. Let me open this up. So it's very, very typical, like any environment. You're going to have users, you're going to have groups, and that's managed by the Active Directory side of the fence. If you're looking at implementing this, we want to play in concert with the Active Directory administrators. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over into my project server. And in this case, I want to be able to open and now log in into project server. But this time I'm going to go in and I'm going to go to, I believe it's in my temp directory here. And there's a product here called Develop Prototype. So I'm just going to open this up. And this is something that you would normally do because we're going to import this project in. And the reason why you want to import it in instead of saving it as a new project is I want to potentially have a problem with the mapping on the resources. Like this file has resources already assigned to it. The last thing I want to do is to redo all that information. I mean, this is 3 tasks, but what if you had, or 6 tasks, what if you had 600? The last thing you want to do is having to re-establish all that information. So, excuse me. And in this case, you would need to go to the Save As, and there is a little checkbox here called the Use Import Wizard. And then you go ahead and click on the Save. And again, we get our little wizard on the side here. So in this case here, we're also have the opportunity of mapping the resources. So here I'm going to click on Map Resources, and it tells me here, this is who I have locally. This is what I may have on this side. So it says, hey, do you want to keep this as a local resource? And the answer is no. Okay, and by default, it won't allow you to create any projects or resources that are based on local, meaning on my machine and not in the server. So if I did, I want to go through and I'll say yes for all of these. And then what I would do on my calendar or on my resource side, I can pull it down if it wakes up. And if it doesn't, I think I may not have any. Let me double check here. Okay, excellent. So what's going to happen is that it's actually going to create them. So let me come back here. Let me cancel out of here for a second. No, that's right. If I don't have them, I can't map them. And it won't allow them, but it will create them. So that is my mistake. Let me do that again. And I can move on. And it's just given me here, let me just pull this over. It already knows about the logins of these people. Because I'm in the domain itself, it knows that these accounts are associated with this, and it gives me the opportunity to importing them. So this is where I'm going to say yes to all of these. And it's even going to, on this case here, not only am I going to create the resource, but it's also going to associate it as a user. So they're going to be able to log in and actually go into the project web app if we give it permission to do so. Yes, please.
If you're starting afresh and you're a big enterprise, about 3,000-4,000 users, would you suck all them into the enterprise before you started all this?
You could do it a number of different ways. What I'm going to show you right after I do this one with the project is I'm going to actually go into the resource pool and I'm going to do an Active Directory synchronization. So specifically for your situation where you have 3,000, I don't want to wait. I want to get all those people in my resource pool. Oops, I had to validate. Is that right? No errors. That's really interesting. Why is it doing that? I'm just going to say no to that guy just in case. Still 0 errors. Well, okay, then how about if we just say no to these right now? And the same thing goes with custom task fields. So if you had custom task fields in the local project plan, you can also have them mapped into the enterprise. Since we don't, we're just going to proceed ahead. And let me slide this over here. So it looks like we're okay. 6 tasks, 0 errors. Cross our fingers. Okay. This is something right at this stage. Everybody wants to go ahead and click close. Unfortunately, you have to click the save on top of it first. Okay. So always remember, like, we haven't imported until it's been saved. So we go ahead and it'll ask you, save it to Project Web App, and what did we call this? Oh, we'll just call it develop prototype. Okay. And we'll save that as is. Done. Now we can close. Now, the next thing, when you save a file, if you're the project manager, that is viewable to you alone, nobody else, okay? Except for the administrator, I should say. But if anybody else were to say, hey, I thought you worked on that file and how come I don't see it? It's because you haven't published it yet, okay? So it's the same concept of publishing documents in SharePoint. He says, if you don't publish it, you don't see it. So in our case here, under File, it gives us here, it says, hey, publish project is in progress. Do you want to actually do this? And say, yeah, please. And when it does this, the first time, it'll ask me, it says, hey, do you want to create a site specifically for this project? This is typically where project managers, executives, team members of this project will go to declare issues, risks, project plans, communication plans, a project charter, anything related specifically for that. It pops up this because it will create it and it'll be based on the name that you saved it as. Now, in some places, if any of you have SAP or anything along those lines, you may want to use something like a project number that they have given you. Anything to make things a little bit easier for you. And in our case, I'm just going to say, yeah, sure, just to have it there. And you get the information on the bottom here where it says the publish completed successfully. So I'm going to flip over and just click on my projects from PWA. And there's our guy right there. Okay. And if we go and click on this, it immediately gives us some basic information, you know, when is the start, the finish, who is the owner being the project manager typically, and any types of information. This here, I created a custom field called project schedule, and what it is, it's basically the stoplights that everybody loves and sees, and especially they want to see it in their stuff. I've set it up so that it indicates that there is no baseline if a baseline hasn't happened. Now, a baseline is when you've done all your planning, you've done everything right, you've gotten sign off from your director. Your director or an executive, somebody says, hey, this is the plan. We're going to be finished at this date. Okay, it's going to cost us this much money, so on and so forth. And they're basically going to give you the blessing. Say, yes, go ahead. That's when you do a baseline. Because now you're taking everything that is budgetary, that's in the planning mode, now I'm executing. So now I've got everything locked. This is what you said it was going to cost. This is how long it was going to take. Now I'm going to measure and track actuals on this side. And that's why right here, it just, my little formula says, hey, tell it there's no baseline if it hasn't been done yet. That's all. Did you have a question? Nope. Now that's just the project details. Right underneath here is where you'll find the schedule. If it wakes up. And there it is. So it just gives us some information. And you can slide over and you can take a look and see, and it's basically the names of the people in there. And when you're finished with it, you could always just go ahead and click on close. The other thing in here, and it didn't offer me to check out the document because it knows that I'm already checked it out here. So when I'm finished, and this is a bit of a pet peeve of mine, when I click on file, there's no exit anymore. Don't ask me why. I think it's a 2013 thing. To exit, you need to click on the upper right-hand X. And when it does, it says, hey, you have this checked out. You want to check it back in? And the answer is always yes. So now, when I'm in PWA, if I go ahead and click on it, okay, it tells me here it's checked in. It was last modified at this time, and I'm dealing with the published version right now. If I am here, I can go onto the project, and I can actually edit my pieces from here. And I'm just waiting right here. Excuse me. Now, the nice thing about PWA in 2013 is that it has everything except for the wizards in terms of importing the projects in that you can do. So it is a full web-based. And at the same time, you know, you can manage it off of your phone, off of the tablet that you're using, an iPad, a Chromebook, anything along those lines, okay? And again here, take a look at this. It's telling me that I have checked it out to me, and now, you see this? I'm working in a draft mode. Because I could be doing editing, let's say that this is going to take me, let's say it's going to be, instead of 12, we're gonna say it's 15 days, okay? Now, if you were at my session yesterday, one of the things that they have new in 2013 is the calculation services. Notice as soon as I put that in, it changed. It colored it exactly like it was in Project Professional. Automatic, there's no recalc button. It's just, it happens. So that's a huge, huge change. And as well as anything that it visually changes. So let's say, this create samples is going to take, let's say it's going to take 4 months instead. It makes the indication letting you know what actually is going to change on that. Definitely a nice piece. So if we save this, okay, and if I close this, another user, if they look at PWA, they will not see those changes that I just made. And the reason being is I have not published them at all. Publishing means I'm making it available for everybody. And there's my save complete. So if I wanted to, I could go ahead, do a publish, and then it will tell us that we got it successful, now we can close it. And it will give me, hey, do you want to check it back in? Sure. So definitely a lot of advantages working in a web format. I mean, especially if you have project managers that are construction types or they're in very large facilities, you know, making updates on your projects for them. Typically, they are not able to do it. They'll have an administrative assistant or somebody, if they can have one, to do it, or they stay late and they do it themselves. This way, you know, you can have yourself a tablet and go ahead and do it. As long as you have connectivity, you should be good to go. Yes, please.
Can you undo changes or?
Yes.
Or is it just connected with the baselines?
No, no. If I were to go in, if I went in, and let's go into the project, I'm going to edit it. Okay. So I'm here, and you go through, there's your undos right there. So you have everything, you know, at your disposal. So if you wanted to do, let's say, what if scenarios, where it's, okay, what happens if I do that? You know, and I say, okay, where does that look like here? I have a scroll to task button, just like I do in things. Say, oh, I really don't like that. I'm going to put it back, and it does the undo. And if I did a whole bunch, it would just list them all. So. Mm-hmm. It would save it for you specifically on that, on a draft, okay? So that nobody else is going to see it or deal with it. Especially project managers, they're funny that way. Don't touch my stuff, because they get really territorial because they're being critiqued on it, right? Like, I don't know anyone that would would accept working as a project manager if other people were able to make changes in their projects. They just, either you're going to give me the job or you're not. Okay. Now let's. I promised we were going to do an Active Directory. I'm going to stay on this page because I need to check back in and close this. So in this case here, either I can save it or discard my changes, or I can check it in, or I can keep it checked out. And people say, well, why do you want to keep it checked out? Is because I don't want anybody to get in it at all. It's a thing that as project managers, they like to have that control. And I'm just waiting for it to finish the processing here. You'll always see the little pop-up message right here. So it's saving, checking in. Okay. So let me get to my PWA settings. One of the things that we asked or look to do is to be able to do an Active Directory resource pool synchronization. Okay, so you'll see that under operational policies. And all it is a matter of putting in a name of an Active Directory group. Okay, now let me flip over. Hang on, maybe it just might be able to. Are you smart enough to know? Oh, look at that, isn't that nice? So I have a group called TriMagna users. The company, the fictitious company, is called TriMagna. And basically it's all users that are listed in there. So whatever you do, don't use authenticated users. Like, actually create the user yourself so you have a little bit of control over it. This way it makes it a little bit easier on the Active Directory admins. And then you've got a synchronization status. We haven't done anything, so we're going to synchronize it right now. And that's it. Did you blink? It's over. Let's go take a look. There was nothing in security, but now there is. Everybody's in. The only two accounts was the SB service and the administrator accounts. Those are the only two that were in, okay? And the only reason why they're added in here is because they're Active Directory. So they're able to log in, okay? Which is different, because if you go into resources, they're going to be listed in there too, okay? They're going to list the exact same people, okay? It's just looking at the data in two different ways. So let me give you an example. If I go and pick this gentleman, Akfash, one of the things, and you can't see it very well here, is the user login, okay? If you did not have a user login, then they would not be part of the users list, okay, the security users list. Strictly resource only, okay? But if they do have the login account listed in here, then they would belong to both. That's all. As a project manager, I don't care about the users. I care about the resources. And chances are you're going to have hundreds, if not thousands, listed in there. And it'll be your contractors, your vendors, those types of people. Any questions so far? I mean, it's very, very easy to do a synchronization on this. If I were to go through and let me switch back over into, let's say, AD. And let's see here. I'm going to create a new user, because what happens if I have somebody that's new? I'll say Joe. Oh, I'm going to say Joe Clark. And we do Joe Clark here. Whoops. PA. Okay, so there's Joe. We can also, one of the things we want to do, because just by adding Joe does not actually put Joe into any of these other groups, okay? So one of which is in the Trimagna users group. And if I go into members tab, we will see a whole list of everybody there. And this is where I just go in, I'll add Joe's name, click on the check, there. So now, Joe's now listed and also put into the group. And if I switch over into our guy here, and let me get out of here. Yeah, yes, leave the page. And if I go back to my server settings, I need to do a resynchronization of this, okay? So now, if I look under the users, Joe should be listed there. Whoops. And there's Joe. So if you can operate in concert with your Active Directory people, it makes your job a lot easier, okay? And on top of that, since we're already at this piece, if I go into groups, I can synchronize groups, Active Directory groups with project server groups. And these particular groups already have predefined permissions associated with them. So for example, if I have project managers, okay, right here it says, hey, the Active Directory group that you want in here. So what if I said project, actually they're called Trimagna and project managers, okay? Notice that there is no users listed in here. Very simple. I go ahead and save. Okay, and all it does, it just shows a mapping, and I'm not going to do them for everybody, but just to show you the PMs. I go into the menu bar and I click on the Active Directory, and it'll say automatically reactivate currently inactive users if found in Active Directory during the sync. Okay. Be very careful with this option, because typically when they're inactive, there's usually a reason why they're inactive, okay? So it's something that I'm like, I'm gonna leave it for now. Chances are you're gonna know who needs to be in a group, because they're gonna let you know unequivocally. So in my case here, I'm just gonna save and synchronize right now. And I blinked. And now I've got 3 people listed in there. So this is going to make your job, if you're an administrator, really, really easy. Make things a lot easier for you just by doing the synchronization. Any questions on this so far?
Yeah,
Yeah.
do you have to, I mean, if the groups change frequently, do you have to manually go in and do the resync, or?
You would have to do the resync on it unless, and I don't think there is, they used to have a timing option on it in 2010, but I have not seen it in 2013. Now I don't know if that's because it's a timer job that it deals with that or not. I would think that it would need to have some sort of a job dealt with. Let me, yes.
How does it interact with SharePoint groups?
Where I'm showing you entirely is all projects. The question was, how does this deal with SharePoint groups?
Yeah, because you're presenting the project on the SharePoint side.
It is,
What
yeah.
The best thing when you're on a site when you find already the users
Mhm.
side, you'd want the same users to have. They could be resources that is too much.
Correct. One of the things in my session yesterday that we talked about is in Project Web App now has 2 types of permission modes. One is Project Server permission mode, which is what I have, listing of users, groups, all that sort of stuff. The other being SharePoint permission mode. SharePoint permission mode, totally different. Okay, there is no users, there's no groups or anything. You're dealing entirely under the SharePoint administrator's plan for that. Still able to deal with it because they already have predefined groups for you. So if you add those, they're there for you. And if you go through the permissions of the site, you can populate it with those groups as well. So it's just like you would do in SharePoint. That's the only difference. Let me double check here. Okay, let me get moving on some stuff here. I want to create some calendars. Okay. So I'm going to log in again. And I'll open that prototype file. And this is something that's new too. It offers immediately, do you want to check it out? Okay. Before it would automatically do it for you. So that's a nice feature because not necessarily want to check it out all the time. So in my case here, I'm going to go in. Now with project, and this is something that I guess that has been happening for a very long time, instead of calling it calendars, it's called change working time. So when we go to change the working time, it goes through and it gives a listing of the calendar. And what I can do here is on exceptions, and correct me if I'm wrong, isn't May 1st a holiday for you guys? Okay. Is it May Day? Is it the 6th? Is the first Monday? Okay, okay. And essentially, it's just a matter of making the changes necessary to this. Now, let me cancel out here for a second. I want to actually, I'm going to create a new blank project. And I want to flip over into my PWA. And I'm going to go into my enterprise calendars. So one of the things is I can actually go through and I can edit this piece. And what it would do is I'm editing the standard calendar right now as it stands. It goes from 8 to 12, then back again at 1 to 5, okay? And I'm gonna get out of here, I'm gonna close that. If I wanted to, I could make a copy of it already, or I can create a brand new one altogether, okay? And if I create a new calendar, okay, let's say I'll call it evening, okay? And I'll go into my work weeks, and it only has a default listed in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on the details, and it says, hey, do you wanna use a project default time for these days? And the answer is no, I don't. I want to go from Monday to Friday. I'm going to change my dates to specific working times. So in this case here, we're going to do a crossover, and we're going to say from 3 p.m. to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll say 7. 2. So we'll say some 7 p.m. Yeah, I know, I'm not finished. And then I go from 8:00 p.m. and then we'll say 12 a.m. Okay? And what I've done is this, so now I will have 2 calendars. I will have the standard calendar, and I will also have this evening calendar once I've finished. And if I wanted to, let's go do one of these. So May 6th, and is it called May Day? Okay, and I hit enter, and I can do this on an annual basis as make the exceptions, but what I'd rather do, and it sounds like it's the first Monday of May, I can go into the details, and this happens on a yearly basis, and it's not May 6th, but it's the first Monday of May, and I can do this after a certain period or a certain number of occurrences. Well, if it's yearly, I'm pretty sure I'm okay with 20. Or at least I'm going to retire after, before anybody worries about it. So I've got 20. So if I go ahead, and I just for giggles, there, so it's on the 5th. It's already established that it's a non-working day. Same thing with 2015, so on and so forth. So it stays with you. And the nice thing about it is that if you wanted to break and save, let's say I went and saved this, and I'll flip back here. So there's my evening calendar. And let's say I wanted to create a new one, but maybe change it a bit. Maybe the time starts a little bit earlier. They go from 2 p.m. until 11 p.m. Something along those lines. Well, I don't want to redo all those exceptions. That's a pain. So all I'm going to do is make a copy of it, and I'm going to say evening, early, EFT, early shift. Okay? Then it's easy for me to go in. I go into my work weeks, change that, right? And go from here and make this till 2 p.m. now, or something along those lines. 2 p.m. Okay, and everything the same. And now you're done. And it just makes things a little bit easier for you. This is available. One of the things that people forget, you may hear that you get task calendars, project calendars, resource calendars. They're all based on the same thing, and it's based on this enterprise calendar. So if I assign a calendar to you, and we make modifications, okay, say, oh, my friend Joe, he starts at noon, and he goes till 8 o'clock, and he only has a half hour for lunch. Not anybody else has that. Then instead, I'm not going to create an enterprise calendar for Joe. I'm going to create an exception as a resource, and I'm going to modify his workday, not the entire calendar. You don't want a whole long list of calendars here, because you have more chances of having a problem in the future by a project manager selecting the wrong one. Yes?
If one's developing or running a project which is multi-continent, as in resources US, resources UK,
Yes,
would you actually create different
absolutely.
resource calendars at this level, enterprise level?
Yes, absolutely. If I'm managing both sides, like if there's a component in USA, absolutely. And in fact, when I was in Australia, they have an interesting bunch there. Every state has different holidays over there. I mean, literally, it's like, are you serious? I was like, wow. Like if you're in New South Wales, you get, I think, an extra 2. If you're in ACT, where the capital is, you get a lot more because, well, it's a federal town, so they think they can have more holiday. But yeah, you would create them. It doesn't matter where they are geophysically. I'm dealing with locations, and I may need to do that for A, projects, B, tasks, or C, resources.
Certain amount of complexity, and I'm not quite sure how many others have it, and this is where you mentioned, potential items you mentioned early shifts. My guys shift their shifts based upon the number in the cycle. So effectively, 1 week early, next week middle, another week late. Same person, I'm going over a tape round.
Mm-hmm.
Without making massive complexity, would that be more resource than
Yes, you would definitely look at that as a resource level more than anything. But if they are all part of a team, you can assign that to the team itself. You don't care who on the team does it. You just care that the team lead reports that information to you as part of the tracking, whether it's a phone call, a text, whatever. Because as far as you're concerned, it's like, listen, I don't care who does it. It needs to be done right. It needs to be done on time, all right? And that's something that, well, for some PMs, that's difficult. It's a control factor more than anything. But when you deal in agile methodologies and that sort of stuff, software developers, I don't want to, handle any of those guys. And it's like, here, just, write the code, and when you're done, let me know. That's all I want to know. But I know somebody on that team is going to do it, and I know that they have a standard rate, and that's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Would you be able to create different calendars for projects in different countries where the time changes? Or the same
I would get away from doing time zone changes.
Well, yeah.
Stick to when they actually start work and finish work, more specifically, because when you get into that level of granularity, it'll be incredibly taxing, because you'll have, this person owes me 1 hour tomorrow, instead of dealing with it. So if you don't have to deal with hourly basis, deal with days, half days, quarter days. That's a preferred method, especially if you're dealing in different, geographic locations, because you're trying to make it as easy. It's not so much specifically derived for where they're physically located, if that makes sense. Because all I want to know is it a working day for you? Yes or no? It is, okay. And how many hours will you be working, okay? Well, like the office here, they work from this time to this time, but I'm half for the project and I have half for the other, my other admin work. You say, oh, okay, you're only 50% available. Your max units is a 0.5, okay? So then you're only available. So even though you, from a calendar perspective, you work 8 hours a day, I can only use you because it'll show in the max units for the resource only 50%. And that's the critical piece. By the way, what did we finish? Are we finished at 3 back there? What time? 1:45? What? Okay, gotta move. Well, we all want to go and see what we do here, so... Where am I? Oh no, wrong one. Let me get back to my demo here. I'm going to do a custom field very, very quickly, just so that you know that I'm not crazy. I'm going to do a new field. And by the way, when you're doing custom fields, this is the opportunity where you can actually gain more information, or you want to track more, you want to categorize things, anything, whatever you want to do, it's laid out in here. Now this is a task field, so I'm going to select task. It is a text. Now in my case, you can do a lookup table where you can actually pull up a table that's already defined, or in my case, I'm going to do a formula. And it just so happens I have one right here. How did that happen? Okay. So I'm going to copy that. Now, thing to note when you're dealing with task fields that have formulas, they are very taxing onto the server, because every time somebody looks at it, it calculates it, okay? So they even tell you, say, you should really not have anything less than 5 per server. That's it, okay? And even then, most of the time you're not going to get that kind of level, but you just want to make sure. Now, just let me scroll down here. I've got graphical indicators. I wanted to make it look pretty, and I'm going to do this fairly quickly. Where's my... Oh, don't tell me you're going to be like that, are you? Okay. Now, you need to, in this particular case, you have to do these text fields exactly how it's indicated into the formula. So if you do an uppercase, it needs to be an uppercase in the test. So in this case here, I'm going to do no baseline. Yes. And my image for that is going to be a white circle. And my next one is, flip over, it is late plus 5 days. And I'm going to do this. That one's going to be in red. And I'm going to do another one. And that one is going to be late 1 to 5 days. you know. And it's whatever you want to set it up to be, right? So if 1 to 5 days is late for you, then whoops. And of course, we're going to do green. Now, if you want these values, you can actually have them show up as tooltips. So when you hover over them, it'll pop up and say, oh, by the way. So when you hover over this little thing, it'll say late plus 5 days. Now, if it works, it will let us save, and it did, okay? Let me do this real quickly. I'm going to do a brand new one, and oops, I have to close this first. No, I want to discard and discard that one. And the reason why is because I created this field. The only way I can get it back is to close Project Professional and reopen it, because that's when I get the fields listed in. So when I do that, now it should show up this piece, and I'm just going to do this very quickly. T1, T2, T3, and I'm going to say it's 1D, 2D, 3D, and I'm going to say all of these is auto-scheduled. Thank you. Scroll this over. Put this guy in. What was it called? Task. There's our task schedule. There's our little white dots. Let me grab this guy and just bring him over here so we can see him better. Now, if I get this, if this was a long plan, I've done a lot of work, and I finally get the directors to say, yes, go ahead with this. Then I'm going to go in, and I'm going to do something called set the baseline. I set a baseline. It is determining, saying, I'm going to start today. And it's for the entire project, and now we're green, okay? So now, what if I said, real quickly, I'm going to go into my project. No, sorry. Pick a tracking Gantt, and I'm going to say that this is now going to be, whoops. $5 days. Oh, it's yellow. How about if I said it's going to be 10D red? Okay. Very simply. And then, so we know that the formula is working, just me. If I wanted to do this just for me, I could keep this, as a project manager. I don't have to share this with anybody else. If I wanted to do the bells and whistles, I go into server settings, I go into the manage views, okay, and I'm going to add the field that I just added, okay. So if I wanted to go through, I can pick any of these particular ones and say a summary. I'm going to go in, I'm going to add a one I've already done, put it here, move it up to the project name, save it, go into here, and this one I have a developer priority. I can go here, I'll say save this to project there, click it, I'll call it test, and I'm going to publish it because I need to see it. Well, I got no choice. It has published successfully. close it, check it back in, do an F5, it's red. And I'm over 5 minutes. I'm done.